What's going on? It's yours truly, Mr. TALIAFERRO, quickly here. We obviously know a big-time trade in the NBA happened today. Jimmy Butler is now a Philadelphia 76er. Robert Covington, Dario Saric, and a couple other pieces, Sutton in the second-round pick, are now in Minnesota. I'm looking at the Philadelphia 76ers like, yo, you guys can officially compete in the Eastern Conference. You guys have a closer. A couple of the things that the Philadelphia 76ers have been lacking in, they now have fulfilled. By the way, Jimmy Butler's first game he's expected to play after the physical and all that will be Wednesday night. For all my NBA fans out there, that'll be Wednesday night. Jimmy Butler is expected to make his NBA Philadelphia 76ers debut. Now, there are a lot of conversations going on today, but I want to talk about one that I kind of just touched on my platform a day or two ago about Markelle Fultz. Now, this is before I even knew Philly and Minnesota was talking. I had no idea today we were even talking about a trade. But I told y'all it was official to me. Markelle Fultz is a bust. Yo, what if I had something to do with that trade? I'm joking. But still, like, what if it was me? Like, I just made a video saying Markelle Fultz is officially a bust to me. I stand by that. I'm not saying Markelle Fultz won't be a 10, 15, even a 20-point scorer in this league one day. But as a #1 overall pick, what I'm expecting out of that #1 guy, when you look at the last 15 years, the #1 pick has delivered guys like Blake, LeBron, Derrick Rose when healthy. Man, the #1 pick, you know, outside of the year Cleveland drafted the bust in Anthony Bennett. You know, Cleveland had Kyrie. He panned out at #1. He's a phenomenal player. Yeah. #1, that expectation is super, super high. Even this last year's draft with DeAndre Ayton, he's looking like a guy that's going to be 20 and 10 for sure. There's a lot of expectation on a #1 pick, and when you don't deliver at 1, I'm sorry, we got to call it as we see it. I now know today Markelle Fultz will never be the guy of a team. Period. I'm not saying he won't be a guy that can be in your starting lineup and average 15, 20. But what Philly needed him to be, which was the closer, the guy that the scorer of that team, right? You kind of play combo guard with him. You let Ben Simmons run the point most of the game. Sometimes Fultz can grab the ball at the top of the key, run the offense, score. Let Ben Simmons make Fultz a phenomenal shooter. If you thought Fultz would be that guy, it's not gonna happen. I mean, his confidence is shot. He's still shooting free throws like this. Like he's shooting it like it looks bad. It looks horrible. And with that Jimmy Butler signing or trade, and they're trying to sign him long term, they're working on a deal under the table. They can't officially sign Jimmy Butler, Philly, until after the summer, or until free agency starts, rather, right? They're working on a deal right now under the table. And if Jimmy believes in this Philadelphia organization, if he wants to be there long term, and if he thinks this team has a chance to be the team, that's just telling me that Markelle Fultz has just been thrown under the table. He's been, yeah, he's officially no longer a priority in Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Philly's looking to move him this summer. They're going to play this thing out. Like Philly, I don't think Philly's winning a ring this year. But if Philly makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals, right, and let's say they lose to Boston in 6 or 7 games or lose to Toronto in 6 or 7 games, I think Philly's going to look at this summer as interesting, right? Because Boston and Toronto have huge decisions to make. Like, let's say Philly gets past a Boston or a Toronto to get to the conference finals and then face the other team, right? So let's say they get past Boston, they get to Toronto in the Eastern Conference Finals, they lose in 6 games. Philly can kind of pull back. Their young guys, Ben Simmons and Embiid, are going to be there long term. They're going to be there long term. They're going to sign them. They're not going anywhere. So now you get Jimmy Butler signed long term. Philly can look up and be like, okay, we're going to play this thing by ear. What are the Celtics doing with Kyrie Irving? By the way, the Celtics got decisions to make. They just can't sign Kyrie and think everything's going to be okay, because right after you sign Kyrie for a new extension, right after that, Jaylen Brown's coming up, and then right after that, Jason Tatum's coming up. They got too much money given out on that team. And if Boston doesn't make it to the NBA Finals, I'm telling you, that's a disappointing season. So I'm just saying, Philly can look up and be like, okay, we're going to play this by ear. If Boston gets better, we got to go out and maybe grab one more piece. Toronto, let's say Kawhi Leonard sticks to what his uncle has been saying since day one. He wants to be in Los Angeles with the Clippers or the Lakers. Well, then at that point, Philly can kind of play it by ear with Toronto as well. Okay, if they lose Kawhi, they're going nowhere. They don't have a DeRozan. They don't have a Kawhi. If they lose Kawhi in free agency this summer, it's over in Toronto. It's over, right? So then Philly, I think if they know they don't need to go get another piece, if Boston loses Kyrie and Toronto loses Kawhi, they can kind of stand pat. And I believe at that point, Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid is enough to get you to the NBA Finals for the next few years. Obviously, things can happen. But if Boston re-signs Kyrie, if Toronto keeps Kawhi, I think at that point, Philadelphia knows, okay, we're one piece away. We need to go all in and find one more guy. I think if Philly gets one more guy, they can go for a championship. And I just don't think Markelle Fultz is the one other guy. Adding Jimmy Butler to the Markelle Fultz mix, if Markelle Fultz was playing at the level we thought he would be out of Washington, I think you got your 4. But he's not fulfilling that role. He's kind of small. You know, I'd rather my guard be bigger playing the shooting guard position than what he is. Since Ben Simmons is your point guard, like let's say they had drafted Jason Tatum over Markelle Fultz. He should have been the #1 pick, by the way. I think you're good to go. You have Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, 2 perimeter guys. Jimmy can guard Kevin Durant, you know. Jason Tatum could guard a Klay Thompson or even go on Steph if need be. And then you got Ben Simmons and then you got Joel Embiid. That team could beat that team for sure. I'm going to do a video on that. That team could beat the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. That team could beat the Golden State Warriors. But since Philly didn't do that, they're stuck with Fultz, and I think Fultz has been buried. He's not a focal point. I find it hard to believe they're going to pay Simmons max money, Embiid max money, Jimmy max money, and Fultz max money. They could do it because they're going to own Markelle Fultz bird rights. I think they'd rather use that money elsewhere. Maybe a clutch, another key role guy, something. They're not going to invest long term in Markelle Fultz. Jimmy Butler, he clears up everything Markelle lacks in and more. I think the best thing for Philly right now and Markelle is to trade him, you know, at some point next summer. Get something back for him. Maybe get a guy who's in win now mode towards the end of his career, who can play some D. You know, maybe like a Trevor Ariza, whatever you need to go after this, you know, this championship. And I think if you're Philly, you move like that. Fultz, I think this is done. I don't care what Fultz becomes, and you know that ship has sailed. The ball is now going to be in the hands of Jimmy Butler down the stretch. And if Jimmy Butler is the guy that I believe he's going to be, it's going to be on that court in the end of the game because Jimmy Butler's an aggressive personality. It's going to be Ben Simmons. It's going to be J.J. Redick. It's going to be Jimmy Butler. And they're going to have to figure out the 4 because of you move Saric, right? And then it's going to be Embiid. I don't see where Markelle Fultz fits in unless they go Simmons, Fultz. Because you traded 2 starters. You traded Covington and Saric. So maybe they could start Fultz at the 2, go small ball, and Redick at the 3. I'm just not sold on that, though. I just think between Redick and Fultz, you got to make a decision. And right now, Redick is still lights out from the 3-point line. So I don't see them going Simmons, Fultz, Redick at the 3, Butler at the 4, and Embiid at the 5. I don't see it. Maybe in situational ball, but to start that out every game, nah, B. I don't think that's going to be the lineup. I think they'll go Simmons down the stretch, Simmons, Redick. You go Jimmy B, and you find a 4. They can still go out and make a move if they need another 4. And then Embiid at the 5, and I think that's who you roll with down the stretch. And yeah, that team is super dangerous come playoff time. I'm out. I came from nothing, but I want everything God has for me. I interview celebrities. I talk sports. I still represent the culture.
I got the kids. You are now tuned in.
Yo, we locked in right now, Mr.
TALIAFERRO'S.
Mr. TALIAFERRO'S.
Mr. TALIAFERRO'S.
Mr. TALIAFERRO'S.
Shout out to Mr. TALIAFERRO'S.
You're watching Mr. TALIAFERRO'S TV.
Mr. TALIAFERRO'S TV. Here with the Triple B's, you can't do nothing but win.